Hi everyone, and welcome to the 5th episode of our Tarot Course series brought to you by 1millionnights.com. Now in the last episode, we took a look at the symbolism of the Empress card, the representation of Venus, so the Divine Feminine. So what follows is the Emperor, the tarot card bearing the numerological value of 4, the expression of the Divine Masculine. But of course, the Emperor card is much more than the Divine Masculine. It is a part of our beings, it is a part of our inner structures, just as the Empress is alive in each and every one of us, regardless of our physical genders. So all of us have masculine and feminine energies inside of us, of course in different kind of proportions, but they're still present. So right now we're taking a look at the expression of the masculine energies, which is the Emperor. Now this card's astrological correspondent is really important because it says a lot about what this card actually represents. So the Emperor is correlated with the sign of Aries. That is why in most graphical depictions of this card we can see the ram, the symbol of Aries, and also in very many cards the Emperor sits on the throne and in one hand it holds a scepter or a symbolic and decorated blunt weapon, symbol of its nobility, symbol of its dominance, and on the other hand it usually holds a cross. Because, no emperor can become an emperor without the support of the universe. So as above, so below. That emperor had to be destined and guided by the celestial forces to occupy that throne. Now, its most common symbolism is almost self-explanatory. So the emperor, it means leadership, rulership, dominance, the specific qualities of the Divine Masculine, where, this dominance is achieved through self-expression, action, choices, ambition. It is basically the motor, the inner Mars. Now Mars bears the symbolism of a different tarot card, the Tower, but Aries, the sign of Aries, is Mars's home sign. It is the part of the sky which it rules, so naturally they go hand in hand. And this is very important because it always tells us that this card is action oriented. May that be like an inner action or an action that we project on the outside, but it is always dynamic, it is always dependent of our inner processes, our sovereign willpower. So one of the more philosophical, but also philosophical combined with earthly manifestation of the symbol is simply free will. We are the emperors of our own lives, of our own beings. The throne that the emperor sits on is actually the self, and the kingdom of the emperor is our own lives with everything and sometimes everyone in it. Now, before we examine the possible meanings and interpretations and combinations of the Emperor, we need to look at what it is from an astrological perspective, because that offers us the psychology behind it. Now, the sign of Aries is the very first sign which opens the zodiac, so it always represents the beginning, and usually it is associated with the head, because the head is where, from a physical, psychological, spiritual, or every single perspective, where the steering wheel of our bodies, of our lives, our destinies, our choices, actions, etc. is. So Aries contains our primordial identity. It is the expression of who we are instinctually, who we are determined by our genetic configuration, without necessarily the influence of life experience, without education, without learning, study, everything. It is simply the primordial self. It is the home of all our instincts. Yes, sometimes those instincts are very earthly, animalistic. They can be quite aggressive. They can be quite territorial, dominating. Because we are part of nature after all. From certain perspectives, regardless of our intelligence, regardless of our morality, our inner equilibrium, where the heart and the mind is balanced out, we're still animals because, we have to eat and we are part of the trophic chain, regardless of what we do. Yes, absolutely, there were some very special and enlightened souls in our collective history who managed to, exit that cycle, but most of us, 99% of people alive today and in all timelines, are still a little bit animals because we're simply part of nature. Not only we cannot, but we do not want to detach from it because that is our home. We are part of the system. We are part of nature's hive mind, the planet Earth, Gaia. And this is very important because one of the bigger duties of the emperor is to watch over, protect, provide, and, ensure the comfort and well-being of the divine feminine, of the mother, of the empress of planet Earth and Gaia. So the emperor has a very powerful duty and responsibility because it isn't here just to rule, just to dominate, just to set the rules, but also to protect the well-being of everyone. The emperor has to cooperate and work hand in hand with the empress, with Mother Earth, the Great Mother, the Divine Feminine, to ensure balance and equilibrium in all living things. Now, from a Druidic symbolism, the Empress is the Earth Mother. It is the feminine, creative, birthing part of nature, where the Emperor is the predator who keeps everything in balance in such a way that the creation isn't gonna overwhelm the mother, because when even creation is in great excess, well, it consumes everything, including the mother, and the emperor must make sure that the mother is always safe and sound and acts from a place of comfort. And for that, it is exactly the emperor who has to enforce all of the rules. So it is a very military kind of card where, some of the actions that the emperor has to take are rather assertive or really difficult choices to make in order to preserve the great balance of nature and, if we go a little bit higher, of the cosmos. So whenever the emperor pops up in a reading, regardless of the context, regardless if it has to do with the self, with another person, or it is merely symbolic or clarifying, it still represents willpower. It represents either an action, a choice, a desire, a passion, something that has to do with either your will or the will of another person, or sometimes the will of the universe. Now, in certain tarot cards, they don't even name it the emperor. Some authors call it the builder in order to highlight the most gentle, constructive, and positive qualities of the emperor. Because after all, when the emperor wants something, he goes out and does it, performs it, takes action. When the emperor wants a castle, he goes out there and builds it for himself. And of course, the castle is going to be the home of the empress as well. So the emperor is going to share its riches, the fruits of its labor, its accomplishments with all of the kingdom, with the queen, with the people, with everyone. And of course, in times of great need, the emperor is called upon to take action and preserve the equilibrium. For example, when the castle, when something in the kingdom breaks down, when the emperor goes out and fixes it. It restores the balance. When the kingdom is threatened by any outside force, it is the emperor who declares war and defends the kingdom. But at the same time, when there is place for negotiation, trade, exchange, etc., it is also the emperor who makes the choices. The emperor decides what goes and what doesn't. Now, since it is an expression of the divine masculine, very many authors simply name the emperor the divine masculine or the father, the conqueror, etc. I saw so many interpretations, and all of them are valid because all of those are the functions of the emperor. The emperor is actually the father. If the empress is the mother, the emperor is the father. It contains the divine seed, the divine schematic, the blueprint. A builder isn't gonna just build blindly. First of all, the builder makes up the plan, the schematic, the design inside of itself, inside the mind, etc. And that is what it's gonna build upon, the foundations. So the emperor is a card which is also highly intelligent, and it doesn't really matter where that intelligence sources from. It can be simply instinctual intelligence from deep within our genes, from our primordial self, or it can be what we know as basic intelligence, where you just figure things out, you find the logic of things, and that is always constructive and creative. And if it cooperates with the Empress, the symbol of fertility, then the construction is gonna go up very, very quickly, because when the divine masculine and the divine feminine join forces in perfect harmony, new life or new anything is always gonna be born from that union. May it represent physically, as in childbirth, may it be psychological, for example, establishing a family, a union, a commitment, or may it be economical even, material even, where the emperor sets up the business and you have someone to keep it alive, the empress, regardless if that person is male or female. It is still the energy of fertility, of work, keeping that business alive with the transactions, etc. Now another symbolism of the emperor is sovereignty, because that is exactly why he is the emperor and he sits on that throne. He was put on that throne by the most divine forces, so it is the divine who gave him the sovereignty. And what does sovereignty mean? It is that you are free to choose, you are free to decide, you are free to take any course of action depending on your very best judgment. So on one hand, the emperor also has to judge himself, judge the situation, judge the outcome, judge if his sovereign will, desires, passion, etc. can manifest in physical reality, or which course of action he has to take, judge the attitude which he has to display with other people or anything. And also, sovereignty sometimes in life involves that you have to surrender it, you have to give it up for a greater good. That is also among the attributes of the emperor, because sometimes a really, really good ruler has to know when to back up, has to know when to allow, because otherwise you're just gonna be an obsessive control freak, an egocentric narcissist, a dominator, a tyrant, and all of those are the negative expressions of the emperor. When the emperor overdoes it, well, its ego grows so fast that it reaches titanic, colossal proportions, and that is a state of self-absorption, because there is no external reality for that kind of emperor. The whole universe, existence, reality itself revolves around him, and that is already a really negative expression, and that kind of emperor is destined to lose its throne. Like, for example, King Solomon. King Solomon really thought that he was the chosen of the highest forces until he started to abuse the invisible world with his power, and naturally the invisible world slapped him when the time was opportune. So as quickly as his mighty kingdom and his great temple was erected, just as the demons that he enslaved prophesied to him, so quickly it crumbled to dust. And yes, that is one of the expressions of the Tower card, which bears the symbolism of Mars, which goes hand in hand with the sign of Aries. But that is another episode. But there can be also a totally different kind of negative expression of the Emperor card, where if the Emperor lacks will, if the Emperor lacks authority, self-control, discipline, clear judgment, then the Emperor is only gonna allow, accept, squander its power, squander its riches, squander its free will. It's gonna accept compromises which don't advantage him whatsoever, and that also leads to fall, because he fails his primarily duty to protect and look after the self. A very healthy emperor is a sovereign ruler, but he projects onto others his kingdom, his subjects, his queen, neighboring countries, symbolically to be understood, of course, what he wouldn't mind others to project onto him, and that is wisdom. So he rules with an iron fist, that is absolutely true, but he wouldn't mind being subjected to the same treatment, so he upholds his own rules, his own dignity, his own sovereignty, and also respects the sovereignty of others. So this assertive kind of rulership is perfectly mutual, and it creates fairness, because the emperor has to guarantee that divine justice can be found here on earth as well. So the emperor sometimes in life has to take on the role of the judge, and he has to judge through the most divinely equitable principles, as above so below. Of course, that doesn't mean perfection, because here on earth perfection is just a utopia, but all it takes is to try the very best, and that is more than enough. And ultimately, that is also what the divine forces want from us, to try our best, to have that good intent, because sometimes mistakes, errors, unfavorable turn of events are fated, because they lead to evolution. So sometimes it doesn't matter how good-willed we are, how wise we are, how much we use our sovereignty with equilibrium and equality, we can still make mistakes, and you know what? It is absolutely fine, because this is also part of the wisdom of the emperor. So whenever the emperor card pops up in your reading, especially if there isn't a very clear question or a subject, well, it can represent all the qualities of the emperor: initiative, sovereignty, willpower, courage, keep things under control, keep things balanced, keep everything in your life under control, but of course in measure. Measure is very, very important, because the emperor has to be healthy. So it doesn't mean control freak. It just needs that everything in your life, or whatever the subject of the reading is, has to be under your awareness, because once you're aware, you can exercise control. When needed, of course, not excessively. In business, for example, the emperor can be a very good sign that you're up to it, you have all the skills, you have all the talent, you have the experience, believe in yourself, ambition yourself, follow your passions, allow your passions to be a guiding light in your life. Because sometimes Aries is the beginning, as I said, and you can have this beginner's luck as long as you truly embody and become at one with your passion. Or it can mean that you hold the greater and more logical perspective, you're a good leader, others are willing to follow you, others see your true worth. In a career reading, for example, it means that you might be ready psychologically, professionally, to step up and climb up the hierarchical ladder for a managing position, a leadership position. Or it can simply mean keep on doing what you're doing because you are on the right path. You're doing everything correctly. You're holding everything in balance. So your kingdom is up and running. It is well functioning. Everything is happy. Everything is okay. So all you need to do is keep it up and hold the balance. In, for example, a relationship or love reading, it can mean that someone wants to conquer your heart. It can mean that you're gonna meet a person who embodies the Emperor. It can be male and female, but naturally, since the Emperor is a very masculine card, it usually represents masculinity. So even if you are a male and the Emperor pops up in a love reading, well, it can mean a female who has very strong male psychological energies. For example, she is not shy, she is outgoing, she has self-confidence, she has courage, she has everything a successful woman needs. And more importantly, they want to conquer you, they might want your heart, they want something from you. The Emperor can also be a very sexual card because it is passion, Aries animal instincts. It can be like that kind of chemistry, passion, the union of the Emperor and the Empress. In other cases, it can mean an outside person. It can also be like a parent, Emperor. It can be a father figure. It can be a boss. It can be a manager. It can be a male who is in high position, who is willing to help you, offer you some advice, share their experience. But of course it also depends, because sometimes the Emperor in a bad position can mean competition, can mean that someone is ready to attack you, or someone wants to dominate you, someone wants to manipulate you. It can be a toxic person, but we'll get to that a bit later on, the negative combinations of the Emperor. But usually, when an Emperor just pops up like that in a favorable position, well, it can mean that a male, it doesn't matter if you know them, they're an active part of your life, but one who has power is willing to either help you, guide you, inspire you, lend you help, share their experiences. So it generally is a very, very good sign. And for example, if you're a female and you're in a damsel in distress kind of situation, well, it can mean that someone, it doesn't matter who, a male comes and rescue you because they're powerful enough. They made the decision to just help you out unconditionally. From a spiritual perspective, now this is where things can get a little bit complicated. The Emperor sometimes can symbolize that the universe is in control and there's nothing you can do to change and alter the course of events in that specific question or situation, because it is under the strict guidance and rulership of the universe and the fated forces. But at the same time, sometimes it can mean that the universe is silent, it is not intervening. Why? Well, because it is your role to make a decision or to act or to do and enable something in your life, work towards something, use your passion, ambition, express your sovereign willpower, or sometimes, get help from others, convince others to help you. In an unfavorable position, well, the Emperor can tell you that you're over-ambitious, you are beginning to become a control freak, that you are simply bullying psychologically other people, that your leadership is too aggressive, you're becoming a tyrant, you're irritating other people with your willfulness, or that there is an uprising stirring up in the background aimed against you, so it might be warning you to change your ways and to drop down the willfulness and the ego a little bit. But at the same time, it can have a totally different negative expression where the universe might be telling you, well, that you're wishy-washy, that you are not actually serving your own best interest, that you're just allowing other people to take away your power, you're not defending yourself, you're not standing up for yourself, you're not working towards the accomplishment of your desires, but are rather stagnating or procrastinating or just waiting for divine help to drop from the sky, which is definitely not going to happen when the emperor appears, for example, reversed in a negative position, that you're too weak, that you are not taking care of yourself, that you are missing the karmic wisdom, that you are born here to take care of your own being and your own story. Live your story. Be the superstar of your story. Sit on that throne of control and, take rulership of your life destiny and what should and shouldn't be in your life. Now in the following, let's give a few examples of the most positive expression of the emperor combined with certain cards. Now, the emperor with the lovers or with the two of cups, well, it definitely represents that someone wants your heart and someone is going to knock on your door and ask you either for your love, for your friendship, for your sympathy. It can also be, for example, for a totally different kind of partnership. They want you and just you, no one else, to be part of a project or to employ you, etc. Emperor with the 2 of Wands, 3 of Wands, it can represent whatever you want, whatever you desire. Go out there and conquer. Go and do your stuff with courage and self-confidence. Emperor with the devil, for example, or emperor with the 5 of swords, 7 of swords, it can tell you can absolutely get what you desire, but you need to use cheap tactics, as in manipulation, compromises, or simply dominate the situation. Sometimes in life it is simply a necessary evil. Emperor, for example, with the high priestess or the high priest, 9 of cups, or any other spiritually significant card, can represent to simply embody your faith, because your faith is more than enough. Your spiritual power, your self-belief is more than enough to simply attract the benevolence and the cooperation of the universe. So go and get what you desire by manifesting it. Emperor with the devil card, for example, it can mean a sexual connection where you can use your sex appeal to get what you want, but it can also represent use your intelligence in a rather manipulative way. If there is measure, if there is a playfulness attached to this and not done in a very aggressive and evil manner, it doesn't have to be anything negative or, it's part of life. Or, for example, there are cases when the emperor can actually represent a really positive and beneficial thing, but through its negative expression. Let's say the emperor reverse combined with the hangman. Well, victimize yourself and you're gonna get help, maybe more help than you could possibly imagine. Emperor reversed and 3 of swords reversed. Play that you have a broken heart and you are gonna have people's sympathy and compassion. Emperor reversed and 6 of coins. Do not be proud, as in give up on your pride, ask for help, and other people or whoever is going to be more than willing to help you and share with you. Emperor in upright position and 6 of coins, then it is you who have to be generous and you have to share. Now let's take a look at the rather negative expressions of this card. Emperor with the sun or sun reversed, but if it has a bad vibe to it, because it all depends on your intuition, so it's not written in any book what it has to mean. Half of it is your intuition and what you feel. So in this case it can mean that you're turning into a narcissistic person and you're beginning to be toxic. Emperor with the Tower card, Mars in Aries, exactly what we're living in the present moment. too much power, too much control, you're abusive, you're not fair, you're egocentric, you're dominating everyone. And if you keep on doing this, you are gonna trigger karmic forces to take you out of your true throne, so to speak. Emperor and the Three of Cups, for example, Emperor or Two of Cups reversed, Emperor and the Devil. It can sometimes mean, especially if you're female, that your partner is cheating on you. There's a third party situation, or there are secret things which you do not know. Emperor with the High Priestess reversed. You need to find out the secret, because otherwise you cannot, hold your situation in total control. Emperor reversed and the Temperance card, that is when you have to man up and you have to embody courage, because otherwise fate or other people are simply gonna tear you apart. Emperor reversed, Seven of Swords. Be very careful, because someone might want to steal from you, con you, deceive you. Or for example, if you're a male and are doing a relationship reading, for example, what does your girlfriend or wife think about you? And you get the Emperor reversed with the Five of Cups. Well, that means that they're disappointed in you as a male, or sometimes it can mean that they question your potency. But because this Emperor is such a highly general card, it all depends on your intuition. It all depends on how you feel when you're doing the reading, how you're interpreting it. Because as you can see, it can mean a million different things. Because free will can go any direction whatsoever. So basically, when you get the Emperor, just play with it, allow its symbolism to explain itself, clarify it, and if it's still not, resonant, then use another clarifier and another until you figure out what the universe or your higher self is trying to say. And finally, I would like to close this course with a final word of wisdom. No emperor, no king, no pharaoh, no Caesar rules forever. So there are some times in life when we truly have to seize the opportunity and be the emperor and, do everything that it is in our free will. But there are some times in life when simply fate goes against us, and that is the moment when we have to step down the throne and invite a new emperor to sit on it. Nothing in the universe is infinite. No king rules forever, not even in the most highest spiritual and cosmic realms. The universe is in constant flow. The universe is constant change. So basically, it doesn't matter in which moment we become a true expression of the emperors in our own lives. When we do become, we have to enjoy it, and we have to rule with dignity, with compassion. We have to rule with maximum empathy, but also sovereignty, not allowing others to simply steal away our divine spark. And another very important philosophical truth is about power, because the emperor, after all, is the earthly symbol of power, earthly power. The king has power over all earthly things. But true power is, or better said, a person truly possesses power when they can choose mercy and compassion and not severity and cruelty. Because cruelty and severity is so very simple. You can crush something weaker than yourself. But it is when you have that wisdom, it is when you have that divine spark inside of you to tell you, well, because it is in my power to crush them, I choose not to, and to show the opposite, because that is how I consolidate my earthly power that the divine gave to me. Thank you so much for listening. I do hope that this video was useful and that you enjoyed it. And if you'd like it as much as I loved making it, please feel free to share with your friends and people who would like to learn about the tarot. Thank you once again. Wish everyone a blessed and safe day. Until next time, bye for now.